I wanted to address the band first of all. Obviously, this is it's got this. The film has this beautiful story arc of what is the Mark Ronson quote? History, the arc of history bending to the just, and I wonder if that feeling has sunk in for you all yet. Are you used to this feeling of validation, which has finally come?
I don't think we ever lost that feeling of validation, because I think when we started out, we had such confidence in the product we were making, the music we were playing, that even when we came off the road purposefully, and we knew at some stage we put the band back together, and we did that, But what is wonderful is the appreciation over the period of time of the band and its music, and coming back. We reformed in, I think it was 2011, cut a new album in 2015, released it in 2015, and started to do a lot of gigs. And, we've been all over the place, and the appreciation has been stunning. Yeah. So we love that.
Yeah. How does it feel? I mean, seeing all of those, I feel like Cymande is one of those bands. It's not just a band that people like. It must have made things easy for you, Tim, when you were making the film, because I get the impression there's so many people who you've spoken to in the film who are like, yes, I want to talk about Cymande. Finally, I have the opportunity.
There was one sat right next to you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. I mean, not sure about my contribution, but yeah, certainly. I mean,
it's brilliant. What are you talking about? No, it was. Very interesting and quite joyous thing to email and call people up, and they immediately said yes. That's never happened to me before.
Yeah.
I came from doing sport documentaries where people are like, how much it costs? How much are you going to pay me? And so to have people who loved the music and who desperately wanted to be part of it. Also, kind of a lot of them said because they wanted to know what happened. So they wanted the film to actually exist, so that they could find out what happened with the band, because they loved the music but didn't know anything about the story,
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I mean, it's quite a responsibility that you took on telling that story, because you're right. I think it's a story that's been waiting to be told. What was your journey with that, and what's your relationship to the band?
Well, it was a long journey. It started in the 90s with a mixtape that a good bunch of guys at college were passing around, and there was no track listing on it. There was 2 tunes on there that I absolutely loved, and I had no idea who they were by. I thought they were, an American outfit that had done it. But I moved in with a great mate of mine who's a record collector, who should be here tonight but couldn't make it. Otzi, bit of a legend in our circles. He had the records and he was playing them to me, and I was like, oh my God, this is the tune I've been listening to for 5 years and had no idea who it was by. And then he said, these guys are from South London. And I'm like, what? We were living in Streatham at the time. And, the more I found out, the more I asked the question, well, what happened to them? Why don't I know about them? And so it became a bit of it was our thing. We had parties every Saturday night, and we'd be playing some Cymande music, and invariably people would all either go, why don't I know about this? This is brilliant. Or they'd be like, oh, that's that sample from here, and so what we're doing here is really what I've been doing for 30 years, just doing it in a larger scale, really.
Sure, yeah. And for the band, I know you've all seen the film a few times now. How is it watching all of these people, talk with such reverence about your music?
Well, it's really fantastic. And I use the word fantastic deliberately. Because when we came off the road, we intended getting back together at some time. But we intended perhaps it being maybe 2, 3, 4 years after we came off the road. It just happened that it turned out to be 40 years. But, when we came back and we saw that the music was being given a new life through a young audience, that was really what was striking about it, because music of that era, yes, you have your radio stations that specialize in that kind of old music and a kind of traditional kind of thing, but this music had a currency today, and I think that's what surprised us, is that there were young people of today that were buying into the music as though it was music of today, which really surprised us, and that's why we have no issue with the sampling of the 80s and the 90s of the music, because that is what lent itself to the currency that the music has today, and why you're here interviewing us, why Tim has done, the documentary about us. Had it not been for the sampling, that probably would not have happened.
Were you aware at the time that was happening, as it was happening?
I was too busy in the courts representing clients. No, I hadn't focused on that. I think I first became aware of it, I think probably in the early 90s. One of my kids, the older ones, I think brought it to my attention that they'd been listening to music and there was bits that they recognized of our music. But I think the first track that I really heard myself, significant track that I heard myself with the sampling of our music, was the Fugees, the score.
And did you think something's
Money.
happening? I was going to say,
Not really,
the law
no.
thing must be quite useful at this stage in your career.
Well, in fairness, I mean, the two of the major samplings we had was obviously the Fugees. MC Solar had a #1 hit in France with
And Europe, yeah, it was
with Europe, not just France, Europe. But once we a lot of the samplers at the time, they just bought it, as you saw in the documentary. There was no evil intent or anything. These were people who really appreciated the music, and some of them probably were not too attuned to the niceties of copyright, etc., or
Actually put, yeah.
or they may have thought we had died and but when we made them aware that we are still alive, there was no problem.
Going back to this film feeling like a story that that needed to be told, and your feeling of kind of watching. I mean, Sam, you were saying to me just before we came on the stage that it made you quite emotional seeing this film. For the first. I mean, I feel like it's probably quite emotional for everyone in this room watching a film like that, because it is a film about redemption and like people who really deserve credit finally getting it. Tell me about your emotional experience watching the film. Unless that was a private thing that you didn't want to talk about.
You get a little bit mutton dip out this ending.
Share it with the room.
You are a part of what has got what's made it what it is. But I don't know how many times you've seen this film now. But each time, it as I was saying to you before, you hear the track after track after track, and picture after picture, and put the whole thing together. And it's there every time, and it brings out something in you, which I think most documentaries are supposed to do that to you at some point, but it does it with me. And I can feel part of it, and I can feel separate from it because I lived through it. More credit to you, man. Really.
Obviously, it's a few years since the film was finished, and we leave you guys at a certain point on the ascent. And from what I gather from speaking to you all since then, it's been quite the journey. Can you talk to me about what's happened since that moment where the film ends?
Can I jump in for a second?
Yeah.
Because I'm one of the later guys that joined the band. If you've been listening to what's going on, I came quite late, and I wasn't playing music. So really, Cymande and joining Cymande turned me into a musician. So I've been extremely fortunate that I was able to catch up with these guys as musicians as well as people. Didn't know them. Excuse me. Didn't know them as people, but knew them as musicians, and they helped me to become a musician. And that I will always be grateful for, because I've moved not only with playing with Cymande and what it did for me, but being a musician. I found what would work for me. That's what I should have been. I think it's the same with Bami.
Yeah.
We couldn't have been anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Bam, are you still practicing, by the way?
His wife says he is.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know really what to say. What I'd like to say is that a lot of people don't realize that the unique thing about Cymande is that there are no keyboards in any of the music, and for a band to do that and still survive in this time, they have a keyboard. We have a keyboard player now, but those albums that we made and those rhythms, those guys are dancing to. It's all percussion, as John Schroeder said. He was fascinated by the rhythm, and we didn't have any keyboards, which tells me something about the bass man and the guitar man and the drummer man.
See that?
It still bewilders me as to how did we do that without a piano player or a keyboard player in this day and age. And I remember one thing that happened to us when we came back from America. We did a gig at the Fairfield Hall in Croydon, and we were supporting Edgar Broughton. And we went on. They didn't allow us to use the PA because that was reserved for the main band. And when we came off stage and Edgar Broughton started, the whole place shook. You know, I'm saying we must have sounded like a transistor radio. But that is one thing I remember, and another thing I remember too is that when we first came together, there was only one song that we did that was not a Cymande song. You know that song, Patrick?
Of course.
Volunteer Slavery by Roland Kirk. And Roland Kirk was one of my heroes. I must have seen him about 9 or 10 times in Britain. And I saw him before he had his stroke, and I saw him after he had his stroke, and he was tremendous. For a blind man. Am I talking too much?
This is what we're here for.
What about good things?
You can't start an anecdote about Roland Kirk and not finish it. Come on.
Come on, tell us about the two saxes. Come on. 2 saxophones.
More than
Yeah, he played 3 saxophones simultaneously and in harmony. And he played 2 saxophones, 2 different melodies at the same time. I still have a lot of admiration for him. He died some time ago, but yeah.
one of our heroes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Volunteer slavery. But you asked what's been happening.
Yeah.
So I suppose I should tell you.
Well, yes, please. Yes, please. And also, I heard a rumor directly from you, Patrick, that there might be some new material in the
Well,
offering
it
as
can't
well.
be a rumor then.
Well, substantiate it for us, please.
Well, that's quite true. But let me take you back a little.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
As we started, we regrouped, we formed in 2011, went on to do the album, a new album in 2015. In addition to the original core members, we added some wonderful players, still with us. Singer Ray Simpson, saxophone Ray Carles, and a number of others, keyboards, Adrian Reed, and drummer Richard Bailey. All these guys
Kevin
are really,
as well.
Kevin, forgive me. All these guys have their own careers. Well, great, but they fitted in to what we're doing. And Tony Kofi has joined later. We've done a lot of tours. We've made this documentary with Tim, and we're now making a new album. Started a new album a few weeks ago. We're going to Australia in 2 weeks' time for a new...
First time, isn't it?
First time, yeah.
Yes, first time. Going, the new album, we hope, will be finished before the end of March.
Wow.
Can't wait to hear that.
Yeah, come on.
It's gone really well, actually. But the great thing is about coming back. We we can see it kind of from a distance now, despite our own confidence in the music that we've always done, because we've always done original music. We had our own way. Cymande came out of a band Steve and I had before that called Meter. We were playing jazz. So a lot of the stuff that we did was grounded in Meter. And we didn't want to stop there, so we brought all kinds of music in. But from this distance, what we see is something really wonderful. The acceptance of new fans and people who loved us from way back. But it also enables us to know that we were correct to stand our ground.
Yeah.
And we also, you know, we must pay a tribute to, although we had a brief time with Ginger Johnson. You know, I think it was an important period that we spent with it because, as Patrick said, with our first band was a 4-piece band, just a saxophone, drums, guitar, and bass. But our focus in that band was very much, it was called Meter, which I think indicates the kind of thing we were focused on, which was time signatures. We were experimenting with music with different time signatures. And when we transitioned from that band, we had the period with Ginger Johnson. And I think we became more attuned to the rhythmic elements of the music through our experience with Ginger Johnson, because obviously the African drums, the congos and things like that. And that's why when we put Cymande together, that was one of the elements that we wanted to incorporate in the music that we were writing at the time.
Yeah.
I think from my point of view, as I was saying earlier on, John, I'm one of the newer members. I wasn't formally trained. So my biggest influence, and I'll say it every time we go somewhere, is this guy here. He's not trying to play drums like a conventional drummer. Melody is what he's always been interested in. We've never sat down and talked and said, you know, this and this and this. But that, I think that helps with the way the music flows, because for the first 5 years after Cymande split, I couldn't listen to it because my drumming had changed so much. All I could hear was my mistakes. And it wasn't, no, seriously. You could hear it. You know you do. It's there, and you know it's coming in. But after a while...
Don't tell him where it is.
Or which one. Is listening to, when I'm making this, it's just listening to the music from a different angle. I wasn't set as a conventional drummer. Was listening to melodies from these guys when they bring a song down, half done, 3/4 done. We'd put it together, you know, and we'd play and we'd play. One thing this band did, we rehearsed.
You can hear it.
A lot.
Certainly.
But before you finish with us, it's important for us to say how much the loss of Pablo, Ray, Carlos, Trevor White has meant.
Yeah.
They were not just members of the band, but deep friends.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Tim has dedicated the film. You would have noticed it as a real flute. Dedicated it to Pablo.
Yeah.
He was really important.
You can feel his sort of light shining across the whole film.
Well,
Talk about the fear of people in Whitley Bay when they saw all these black guys came out of this Dormobile.
the working men's club in the North was an experience. I mean, we weren't a pop band, we weren't a rock band. We were doing the music we were doing at the time, and I think it probably they were looking at us and probably saying, "What the hell is this?" Certainly, we're playing these up Mother Browns. So no, it was a difficult. Those kind of gigs
it was a difficult gig,
you know, because you're not getting any kind of connection with the people that were there. But that's all part of the grill that we went through, you know.
I take a different view from Steve, actually, because if anybody's fortunate enough to find a tape of that show, you would hear Cymande playing Chuck Berry music, and the audience liked it. So.
I don't recall Chuck Berry. Yeah? Yep. Was that when they weren't responding to our own music?
Yeah. And we're proud of him. He did a wonderful job with us. And the nice thing is that, you know, from the 1970s all the way through to John passing away, we remained friends.
Contact,
More importantly, when we decided to bring the band back together, 2011, and make a record, we called him, and he was ready at the drop of a hat to do it, both John and Alan Florence, the engineer. So we really appreciate John. We speak about him all the time. One of the wonderful things about John, well, two, put his money where his mouth was, and he loved Cymande, and we remained really close. I'm glad you came. Wonderful. And thank you.
But you know, John is dear to us because the experiences that we had at the time when we were trying to get record companies interested in our music was very, very difficult. You know, they just couldn't connect with what we were trying to do. It wasn't soul music from the States, it wasn't rock, it wasn't pop. And I suppose for a lot of the record companies at the time, they just thought, well, what the hell was this, you know? But John, he heard the music, and to his credit, he liked what he heard, and he didn't try to tamper with it. He wanted to capture exactly what he was hearing onto vinyl. He didn't give us any directions in terms of sometimes you get producers that set through interfere and says, okay, do this, or bring in other stuff in. But John, he liked what he heard, and that's what he wanted to record, and that's what he did with those 3 albums. So he's held in high esteem by us.
Before we let you go, there's going to be, we can all have a little dance to some Cymande records and other great records. Wrong Time is DJing in the bar after this, but some practical details about where we can watch this film again and release details, etc. Tim.
Yeah, so it's out in cinemas on Friday, so please tell all your friends, all your family, come to the BFI's website for details. Lots of cinemas all around the country. And then on the 26th of February, it's going to be on Blu-ray, double disc Blu-ray, physical media. Yes. Come on, it's making a comeback. Come on, and on BFI Player as well, so you can stream it. So yeah, we're really excited. Tell all your friends. Let's get this story out there, and also see you in the bar.
Thank you all for coming.